So I've decided, since I read mostly as a mood reader, and also any books that like are planned out or for secret vlogs and stuff, that I would do a wrap up 2 months at a time. So every other month there would be a wrap up video. And since it's March, that means it's time for January and February's wrap up. I have a wonderful sticky note thing with all 27, yep, all 27 of them. We do not need to talk about that fact. And most of what I read is ebooks or audiobooks from the library, so I won't be holding up many books. Like, all the books that I'll be holding up are the ones that are in the thumbnail. I think there was one other physical book I read, but my grandfather has it at the time, so can't hold up that one. But why don't we just start this off with January? I thought I'd do it chronological order, except for the one that I started in January and ended the last day of February. I figured I'd do that one in between the months. But we should start with January, and I'll try to explain what happens in some of them, but, like, January was so long ago, it feels like, so who knows. The first one I read was Where the Sidewalk Ends by Shel Silverstein? This is the video where we learn I can't speak. I can't pronounce names. Woo. No, it's a book, I think it was published in like the 90s or something. He's a pretty popular kid poet. Like he wrote poems for kids. He's not alive anymore. But he's pretty famous for writing poetry books for kids. That's what this was. I didn't hate it. I didn't like it. There were like 2 or 3 poems I remember really enjoying. But other than that, nothing really special in my eyes, so I rated that one 3 stars. This is gonna be fun editing all the books right here. Are you ready editing me? Are you ready? The text right here that just says no. Next up I read Know My Name by Chanel Miller. I think that's how you pronounce her name. It is a nonfiction book, which there's of course a conversation about rating nonfiction books, especially ones with such difficult topics as this one. And I obviously don't rate it based off of the experience the person had or that they're talking about and whatnot. I rate it based off of their writing, how it made me feel, the effect it had on me, the general theme, if it had like a larger purpose and such, all that. And so I rated Know My Name 5 stars, which is the memoir of the victim in the Brock Turner case, I think that's his name, who essayed her on a campus, and basically, it's not like the story of what happened, it's the story of everything that happened afterwards, like the trial, the waiting, her life being on pause, everything, and it's sad, it's emotional, I'm pretty sure I cried. And if you can handle the emotional time that is reading this book, because it's really emotional, because she goes into detail. I can't even believe the amount of emotion she had to go through to write this. Like, having to read back all the transcripts from the court case and everything to write this book must have been a time. I can barely even imagine. So if you think you can emotionally handle what this topic is, I do definitely say pick it up, because it is a really good book. It's written really well. You can tell that she can write, and that she's a very creative person. It's beautifully written, and all that. So, recommend that one. After that is the physical book I don't have. My grandfather has it, which is Rock, Paper, Scissors by Alice Feeney. It was a mystery thriller, and the main character really was a husband, and he is a face-blind screenwriter, I guess. He's known for adaptations, specifically of these books written by a famous author that everyone really loves, but would never let people adapt his books until him. And he really wants to get his own original script published or turned into a movie or whatever, but it never ends up happening for him. And then he's having problems with his marriage as his wife wins a free trip to this renovated church, kind of, in the middle of nowheres, and it's this whole big thing, but they're also being stalked, and it's kind of this trying to figure out what happened in their marriage, who did what, who's in the wrong, and the plot twist was definitely plot twisty, but I was still confused. It didn't explain anything. I was still confused. It's definitely one, despite the fact that I rated it 2.5 stars, that I would reread, purely because now I know why and what. I can read back through it and see if it makes sense now, if I know everything. So that was that one. And then there was Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens, which I rated 1.5 stars. This one I listened to while playing Stardew Valley a lot. I had such trouble reading this one. I couldn't force myself to pick it back up. It was really difficult. The only reason I actually finished it was because I had, by the time I finished it, there was 7 hours left on having my copy from the library on Libby. So it was going to be sent back in 7 hours by the time I finished it. And I didn't want to have to wait 6 weeks to have it again. So I just listened to it while playing Stardew Valley. Honestly, if you want to hear about this, I'd say just check out my review on Goodreads, because I actually did an okay job writing a review. And I also linked someone else's review in it that does a much better job explaining my problems with this. But basically, it really depends on what your expectations are going into it. The writing style, don't get me wrong, great. That's what the 0.5 is. That's the great writing style that I loved. It's very, beautifully written, flowery language type thing. And I see why all my classmates, when in, all my creative writing classes, would tell everyone to read this book. But the plot, was a no. Just no. It is described as a mystery thriller. One day, someone is killed, and it's believed that it is the quote-unquote Marsh girl who did it, and this whole entire book is just a timeline of the Marsh girl's life, but every once in a while you get, a quick little tiny chapter, it was, 2 minutes in the audiobook, of them trying to find out who the murderer is, and it's just, it wasn't well done. That part wasn't well done. The plot wasn't actually good. It tried to make itself this whole big mystery thriller and try to figure out, what it means to be a person and human and how we treat other people. But instead it just felt like people are mean sometimes. But also, did she actually murder him? The answer by the end of the book is, I don't know. And I read the whole thing. So I rated it 1.5 stars. Though if you want to read a book that has beautiful language, I do recommend it. After that, I read the graphic novel Bloom by Kevin Hanada? I suck at pronouncing names. Moral of the story. It's a quick little graphic novel. I would not pick it up if you're looking for romance, because there's maybe 5 pages of romance in it. And it was described to me as a gay romance, so expectations were not met, hence 3 star. The premise is basically, there's these 2 main characters. One of them is the son of a family that runs a small town bakery, but he doesn't understand family business, baking, all this stuff, and he just wants to move to the city and join a band, or make a band with his friends and all this stuff. Except his friends are not great people. I hate them all. Thank you, good night. And then there's the other main character who is his love interest, hence the 5 pages of romance, where they kiss once and then fire happens. That is an actual plot point. But some family member of his has died in this small town, so he's cleaning out the house and all this stuff and getting ready to sell it. And he wants to do something else other than clean out this house while he's in this small town, and he loves to bake, so he applies for a job at the bakery. He gets hired. They slowly become friends, and then more than friends, and then stuff happens, and they stop being more than friends very fast. And then kind of they make up, kind of. I think there's supposed to be a sequel at some point soon. So I'll definitely read the sequel when that comes out. But that was a 3-star. And now we get to the point that's fun times sometimes. Which is, I read a lot for secret vlog ideas. Shush. I think there was a total of 8 during these 2 months I read for a secret vlog that I'm finished filming this month, so like, oof. There were 2 in January and 6 in February. And most of those are what the physical books I read were, so I am sorry for that, because you don't get to know my ratings, but you do get to know that I loved Legendborn. This was great. Can you see I annotated it? This is a chunky boy. I'm just gonna try to find a page that has any... I just went past one. Seriously, me? I highlighted a lot. I also, like, had tabs every part because it's split up into parts. And so I think it was after every part, I had, like, a giant sticky note with thoughts and theories and all this fun stuff. I had a time. Brie. Yeah, that's her name, Brie. I was trying to figure out if her name was actually Brie. So this is Brie. This wonderful, beautiful lady is Brie. She's like 16, I think, and her mother has just died in a car accident. And so she is going to this, like, advanced program at the nearby college to where she lives with her best friend, where basically high school students can go there to take college classes and get college credits, and it's this whole thing. And apparently it's an actual thing that the writer actually, it's Tracy Dion. I don't know if I actually said Tracy Dion's name, that Tracy Dion actually did. So it definitely felt like a real place and a real thing. But she goes there, and from day one, she accidentally sees some creepy, weird magic stuff. And then creepy, weird magic stuff turns into a secret cult that has to do, secret society type thing, that has to do with Arthur and the Round Table, hence why I picked this up. And, it's basically an old man white guys club that, like, they very recently started adding women to this club. Like, there's one non-binary person, and that's like a big deal. Oh my god, how could they? And I think it was like in the past like 20 or 30 years they started to allow the daughters into the club. There's one other mixed race person in the club, and she is passing, and that's like the only reason they even like let her in. Like, when her father, who is not originally part of the club, shows up, they like make it this whole big deal when he shows up, and the only reason they don't make a big deal about her is because she's white passing. If you can see Brie, she is very clearly not white passing. And so it's like a big deal that a black woman that is not a part of this society already, through bloodline and whatnot, is suddenly joining, to try to solve the case of what happened to her mother, because she thinks her mother was actually murdered by these people. And then a lot of other stuff happens that I can't talk about. There's a love triangle that I love, where if you squint at it hard enough by looking through the lens of the Arthur legends, technically, it's ultra gay. There's so much representation in this, like, going past the color representation. There's also, bi characters, there's straight up gay characters, there's characters that are, like, have no labels, but definitely are in some type of the spectrum. There's, of course, the non-binary person I already mentioned. There's so much representation. I loved this, and I need the next one. I also want to reread it, which says a lot about me. Now, after Legendborn, we went downhill fast. We went to, this is a long one, Death Row, The Final Minutes by Michelle Lyons. I think it's Lyons. She was, from a young age, someone who worked in the field that had to do with death row. She started out as a journalist that would cover inmates on death row and such, and watching them die and reporting on them in Texas. And then she slowly started working into that field itself, talking to the public and all these people about it, and all. It was very confusing on what she actually did in the prison system working there. Now I rated it 2 stars, and let me explain why. I think I also wrote a pretty okay review on this one. But basically, you go into it thinking this book is going to be a conversation on the pros and cons and the different sides of the death row, the perks, the cons, all this fun stuff, as well as conversations, they barely touched on, conversations what it was being a woman working in this field, how she was treated by the male inmates, how female inmates who killed their own children would not be put on death row, but male inmates who would kill their own children would be. All this conversation was briefly touched on. Okay, my camera stopped recording after 18 minutes, so here we are. But I'll start where I left off with Death Row: The Final Minutes. Basically, the way it was written was very reminiscent of her journalism days. It was written little snippets of an article about someone who's on death row, back to back to back to back, with little things in the middle about the fuller story. It very much read like a journalistic piece, which makes sense with her background. I understand that. But it does not make sense for a full-length novel. It was very slow, annoying to read, felt like there was no point in the story the whole time, so I rated it 2 stars. I swear it makes more sense in my written review, I swear. Next up, we got The Man Who Loved Jane Austen by Sally Smith O'Rourke. I'll put on this side. This is another one for the secret vlog. I also annotated this one. This one was borrowed from a friend's mom, so I didn't write on the actual pages, so I just put sticky notes in and wrote on those. I have thoughts and opinions that I cannot talk about because secret vlog, which will be put in the description below when it is done and uploaded. But in the meantime, let me just describe what the plot of this is. Her name is Eliza Knight. I should have remembered that. God damn it. Eliza Knight is an artist in, I think, New York City. And she sells her landscape pieces online. The thing is that this was written early 2000s, and it's really reminiscent of this way. It talk about internet stuff, when she's trying to send emails, or turning on her computer, or looking up stuff about Jane Austen on the internet, or talking about selling her prints. All of that was so hilariously early 2000s, 2005, that I couldn't not laugh. Basically, the premise is Eliza ends up finding a vanity, I think it was, at a thrift store. She buys it, she goes to refurnish it, and she ends up finding some hidden letters in there from Jane Austen to Mr. Darcy, the Mr. Darcy. She does some research, she takes it to an actual professional in this topic. She confirms that's the real thing, the real deal. She breaks up with her boyfriend. She goes to find the Darcy family, the last living member of the Darcy family. She goes to talk to him about this. He offers a butt ton of money for it from the start, for all of this. And she says no, and they start having this conversation, and he tells her the whole story of how he accidentally time traveled to the 1800s. Was it the 1800s? Met Jane Austen, kind of fell in love with her, and then he came back. And now he's trying to remove all the evidence of this ever happening. That is the book. And the premise, the sun really wants to come out right now. Was this well done? Honestly, I don't know. There's someone's review that I read, because, like, no one knows this book exists, except for, like, a handful of people, apparently. And there was this one review on Goodreads that I read, and the way they said it is, these were not characters, they are caricatures of Jane Austen's characters. Which is so true. Like, it's obvious who the Bingleys are supposed to be and all this stuff, and the whole time you're just like, I don't understand. Why is this a thing? That being said, it's not particularly bad. It was just an interesting time. To talk about Throne of Glass, we have to first talk about my history with Sarah J. Maas. Started with the ACOTAR series, the first 3, and that novella. I haven't read A Quarter of Silver Flames yet. But I started out with ACOTAR. I rated the first one 1 star, second one 2 star, ACOWAR 3 stars, and then I think the novella 2 stars. And then by now, the second Crescent City is out, and I have not read it yet, obviously, because it just came out. But I did read the first one. It took me like more than 100 days, but I did it. I achieved my goal. I read it, and I loved it. I rated it 4 stars. That was my favorite Sarah J. Maas at the time. And so I decided, for some reason, to read Throne of Glass. I say some reason. I liked it. I was scared, because I have a rocky history with Sarah J. Maas. So I was very worried about what my thoughts would be on whether or not I would like it. Spoiler alert, 4 stars. I have a problem with rating books, first books in series 5 stars until I read the rest of them. But I really enjoyed it. It was basically my dream book when I was a teenager. So honestly, if I'd read this when it came out, imagine little me reading this. I think I wrote in my review on Goodreads, oh my god, imagine that, that it was like my dream character, like what I would imagine my characters to be like when I would play a rogue in role-playing games when I was a teenager. So it was like my perfect book. Can I even explain what Throne of Glass is? I don't even know. I don't remember any character's name, so this is the fun part. We have our heroine. She clearly is gonna have to save the day somehow. She used to be like one of the world's most renowned assassins, despite being really young. Like, I think she's like 16 or 17 during this book. She eventually was betrayed, captured, and turned into a work slave until she dies. And she has managed to survive somehow in these conditions. And then the prince comes and is like, hey, my father's throwing a secret competition for a secret assassin sanctioned by the king, and I want you to be my champion. So then there's like these trials against all these other champions, blah blah blah. Spoiler. No, not spoiler. I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna tell you what happens. But there's also secret magic stuff in secret tunnels and secret prophecies and queens from other lands with magical powers. It's a good time. Rated 4 stars. Kind of want to reread it again, because it's been 2 months at this point, almost, since I read the first one, so I kind of want to read Assassin Blade. I think that's the novella book, and then read the rest of the series. But now I have them all, so I don't have to worry about library waits and whatnot. So I like that one. And then, I think this is the only other book that is a physical one that is not for the Secret Blog. And I actually have this one, and that is Death by Laura Thalassa. This is the 4th and final book in the Four Horsemen series. If you watched my newbie book tag video, whatever, I mentioned that the book that really got me into reading as an adult, again, reading as an adult, especially reading romance, because, you know, romance, how dare you, especially dark romance, oh my god. This was like, Pestilence was like my first taste into dark romance, and it was the book that got me into reading books as an adult. I will forever love Laura Thalassa and the series because of that. I think I have rated, I can't tell you what I rated him in, because that's part of Secret Blog as well. But I did read rate Pestilence 5 stars. I think now if I would rate it, I'd rate it 4, but who knows. And then War, I rated 4, and then this one I rated 5. If I had to, like, tier list them, I think it would go Death, Famine, Pestilence, War. I don't know, Famine and Death may switch. It depends on the day. What? This book is a time. Basically, the premise of the whole entire series, I guess I was like, I can't really talk about this one, since it's the last book in the series, but basically, the Four Horsemen came, they killed almost everyone, and now they're coming back one at a time to, end humanity for good. Start with pestilence, then war, then famine, then death. But here's the thing, each of them have a woman who teaches them love and humanity and all this stuff, and also how to bang. And, then they decide not to end humanity, or do they? Depends on which one you're following. Of course, each of them have different powers. Pestilence makes you super sick, or something like that. And then War literally just gets giant squirts of people to follow him and kill everyone. I think he can also raise the dead, I'm not sure. Famine uses plants to kill people. He can, like, kill plants when he goes past them, but he can also grow plants, and so he, like, stabs people with vines. That was actually really funny to imagine. And then Death literally doesn't have to do anything. He just kills them just by walking through a town and whatnot. And I think every single one, the heroine tries to kill the horseman at least once, which is always so funny. And of course, the main character in this, you're like, what? How can Death just insta-kill everyone he goes by? Then how is there a heroine in this one? Spoiler, she can't die. Hence the name, Lazarus. I laughed too hard at that the first time I read it. I rated 5 stars. It was great. I recommend the series. I think her other series, the Bargainer series? Bargainer Saga? Rhapsodic is the first one. Got new hype on TikTok somewhat recently. So I recommend it. I say read it. I have them all, so I can't. I love it. And then after that, I reread The Poet X by Elizabeth Cavato. I'm sorry, I can't pronounce words. I read it in 2020 originally as an ebook. I read it with my eyeballs. And this time I read it as an audiobook, which was a good decision. I read it originally as an ebook because I knew that was poetry, and I like to see how poetry is, like, written out. So I read it on my iPad, and then right after I finished it, someone said you should listen to it because the author narrates it. And also, a big plot point in it is spoken word poetry. So it kind of just comes full circle. And so I decided to it was available at my library as an audiobook, so I decided why not. And I picked it up, and I listened to it in one sitting. I was playing Stardew Valley. The moments that still hit. I had to pause my game, and I was just sitting there, just having a time. It's one of those books I recommend you read twice. For me, I think it's better if you read it physically, first, with your eyeballs so you can see how it's laid out and everything, and then you hear how she says it and talks about it and all this stuff, by listening to it. Plot? How do I explain what happens in this book? Zio is, I think what's her name? Oh boy. She is a teenager, with a very religious mother and a father who might as well not be there. Her words, not mine. And a super smart twin brother who goes to, like, this fancy school and all this stuff. She is slowly coming into her own body and all this, and men are starting to notice. She's getting eyes and stuff. Her mother's not happy about this. She has her first crush on an actual boy, and she has a teacher who believes in her art and poetry and tries to talk her into doing spoken word poetry. That's like the bare minimum. If you haven't read it, go read it. It's really good. 5 stars. Look at that. It's been another 18 minutes. Oh boy! So, I'll just restart about the Count of Monte Cristo stuff. I read Count of Monte Cristo. This is what happened. I started in January, the 7th of January. Read about 200 pages in January, finished it the last day of February, which was about 1,000 pages more. And should we have a conversation about how it could have most definitely been 500 pages shorter? Yes. Should we have a conversation about the character of Haiti and her relationship with the main character and how that's not okay? 100%. But that's for smarter people to do. I'm just gonna talk about the basic premise, my thoughts, and that's it. So the basic premise is there's Edmond Dante. His life is looking great from the start of the book. The captain of the ship that he works on has just died, and he's like become the intermediate captain until they get back home, and then the people who own the ship can decide who's the new official captain. And so when they get home, they decide him. And so there's someone on the ship that's jealous. And then he's also engaged to a beautiful woman, about to marry her, like the day he gets arrested. And there's someone jealous about that. Now, there was a letter or something that the captain of the ship had given him for, like, his dying wish and to do a bunch of stuff with. The guy on the boat who was jealous saw this, and so he writes up this letter telling the powers that be, hey, this guy has been doing some shady stuff, you should check it out. And then he gives it to the guy who's jealous about his fiancée, and that guy gives it to the authorities. And then the authorities question one specific authority questions him, reads the letter, turns out, like the letter from the captain, and it turns out it has to do with this authority man's father and the illegal stuff he's doing. But Edmund does not know any of this. He tells Edmund everything's gonna be fine, and then sends him to jail for 14 years, and burns the letter, and he's sent to jail for something he never did. All this stuff. Eventually he breaks out, and he decides to enact his revenge and become the Count of Monte Cristo. He has all this money now, and he decides to enact revenge on these people. A few, Danglars and what's the other one? The one who was jealous of his fiancée. Their revenge. Yeah, I get that. Whatever. Cool. Whatever. Villefort, I realized he did some bad things. But his revenge was heavy. So very heavy. It felt like this was supposed to be both a tale of humanity and romance, and what it means to lose your humanity, but also get it back with the power of love. With your slave. But it just felt like these people living their lives while a madman's changing his outfit right in front of them and be like, secretly I'm Edmond Dante, and trying not to laugh. There was one very hilarious scene where someone's like, tell me who you really are. And so he changes his outfit, like goes around a corner, quickly changes into a sailor outfit, and he's like, oh, you're this guy. And then he takes off a beard. He's like, never mind, you're Edmond Dante. And it's so funny. And I don't think it's supposed to be funny. And honestly, that's fine. My main problem was the Haiti thing. We really need to have a conversation about her, but that's for another day. And the fact that it's way too long. The writing wasn't bad or anything. It was entertaining enough. I listened to the audiobook and read it at the same time, like, with my eyeballs. So that really helped me. It just was too long. And Haiti needs help. Someone please get her out of the situation. So 3 stars. That's where I ended on that. I'm just honestly proud that I read it. Now, we're on to February. We're on to February officially. Counting Count of Monte Cristo, I read 16 books in February. We don't need to talk about this. It's okay. Everything's okay. Everything's fine. I honestly don't know how I did it. The first book that I read, because technically the last book I finished was Count of Monte Cristo, was Never Let Me Go by Kazuo Ishiguro. I butcher that every time I have to saying his name, and I'm sorry. This is another one for the secret video vlog, but it's an ebook this time. This is a really short book, so it's very hard to explain the premise. But basically, it's a book about these three friends, their lives together growing up, and as an adult having to go through this process that I can't tell you about because spoilers. And trying to help figure out, like, it's supposed to be this whole thing on what it means to be human, what is humanity, all this stuff. And one, I guess the plot twist, like, I think in the first 10 pages, like, if you go back on my notes, I'm literally writing in the margins on my e-copy, like, something like, blah, 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 and then, like, 100 pages later, I'm like, blah, 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 and then, like, 10 pages later, they're like, it's actually this. I'm like, wow, who would have guessed? It was okay. The question on, like, humanity and stuff, yeah, I guess I get it. The way that it was told, was from the main character in the future telling all this stuff from the past, but, like, was going back and forth in all this weird way. Like, she would mention something, but then go further back in time, and then go back to that something. And it was very, not confusing, but annoying. That being said, the characters were really well written. One of them, I think her name was Ruth or Ruby or something like that. I don't need to talk about high school. Let's just, it was a time trying to psychologically analyze myself by going through this book. It was okay. Wasn't my favorite book to do something like this. If you like this book, I would recommend Tender is the Flesh. But not vice versa, because in my mind, Tender is the Flesh did it better. The next book I read was Girlay by Abigail Dean, as an audiobook. Listen, I don't know how you should read this, honestly, because this one was written, timeline jumpy, back and forth, and there's no way to tell which timeline you're in the audio format. You have to just pray and hope that you are thinking you're in the right timeline, and you have to really pay attention. This is not a book you listen to while playing Stardew Valley. I learned that the hard way. But I also, like, downloaded the free copy off of Amazon, like, free sample thing, to see what it looks like physical. And it is split up, very obviously when it jumps times. But the chapters are so long. Like, I think more than one was 2 hours long audio format. So, like, it's a real question of, like, which way do you read it, or do you read both at the same time? Like, do you listen while you read it? I think that's the way you have to do it if you want to read this. That being said, I did enjoy it much more than most people who I read this with in a book club. I think I rated it 3.5 stars, and most rated it 2 or 3 stars. So, I was, like, the outlier, in this, enjoying this book. Basically, the premise is that there's a bunch of kids who grew up in this household that was very abusive. You can tell that Abigail Dean, like, did a bunch of research on, like, actual cases like this, and decided not to go into detail of what physically happened to them. Like, you get the very brief snippets of what actually physically happened to them, but more of, like, the psychological and how it affected their future lives and all this stuff. And so, Girl A is the firstborn daughter. There's, like, Girl A, Boy A, all this stuff. And I think there's, like, 7 kids overall. But it's her looking, like, one of them is getting married at the point in the book where it's current time. And she is looking at her past, through the lens because of this, and figuring out more about herself and her family and what happened back then and what really happened and why they didn't escape earlier and all this stuff. She was the one that escaped first and got the rest of them out. And she's really, like, famous because of it. And it is sad, it is heartbreaking. It is, if you think you can handle it and you like long chapters, I recommend it. It is definitely, thought-provoking. I'll give it that. Next up is another reading vlog one. I'm sorry. I think, every single one at this point that's physical is going to be, ones for the reading vlog. So I'm sorry for that. And this one is the last one for this that is an ebook physical, or ebook copy for the reading vlog, which is The Ocean at the End of the Lane by Neil Gaiman. Do you get the point of the vlog yet? Psst, psst. So I read a Neil Gaiman, like, once, forever ago. And I wasn't sure if I liked his writing or whatnot, because I didn't remember it. So I thought I'd pick up one of his more recent, not really recent, but kind of recent books, and see if I like his writing. Turns out I like magical realism. Spoiler, I like this one. But this one was another one that was kind of like a look into what it means to be human, kind of. Basically the premise is this middle-aged man is back home where he grew up for a funeral. He is, after the funeral, just driving around thinking in his own head. He ends up at the end of this lane where he remembers a friend that he had one summer lived. He goes there and ends up sitting at like the pond behind their house or the ocean at the end of the lane, and thinking about life. And then as he's sitting there, he's suddenly getting all his memories back from that summer. I think it was the summer. And all the stuff he went through. Honestly, very happy he forgets every time. Like, no. All this magical stuff that happens and everything. And every time he leaves the ocean, he forgets. And so he suddenly remembers, he thinks about his own actions and what they led to and all this stuff. And how this all affected his family, despite the fact that none of them remembered this. And then he leaves and goes back to his life. I liked it. If you like magical realism, if you want to step into magical realism, I recommend it, being as it's so short. Okay, little water break over. Next up is when we get fun times sometimes. I, since December, have been working through the Spindle Cove series by Tessa Dare. I read the first one early December. I read the Christmas novella around Christmas. That's why I started it, just to have a Christmas novella to read during Christmas time. And I read both the second and the third this month. The third one is the last book I'll be talking about, so just ignore that for now. Second one, which is A Week to Be Wicked, by Tessa Dare. I loved it. Do we need to have a conversation about how this is my favorite one so far in the series? Don't really think so. I've rated the first one 5 stars and A Christmas Novella 4 stars. This one was also a 5-star. And I loved it. Basically, this one follows Minerva Highwood, I think that's her last name, and Lord Payne. Lord Payne is an infamous rake. Minerva is known to be kind of a different lady. Spindle Cove is like a place for ladies who have special interests and whatnot to go and embrace who they are, despite having to, like, instead of being what society wants them to be. Minerva is a geologist, and she has found a giant find in the caves underwater in Spindle Cove. She is not perceived as beautiful or anything because her nose is always in the book, whatnot. She's the middle sister. Her sisters are considered super beautiful, especially her older sister. And all this. In the first book, you get like a little snippet where Payne finally realizes, hey, she's pretty. She needs to get to Edinburgh, I think it is, for a symposium to show off this find that she has, but she can't go there on her own because she's a lady. So she asks Payne to take her and is willing to pay him the money if she wins, which she really believes she will win. The symposium, if she wins, she gets like all this money and she'll give it to him, and then he can use it to live his life until his birthday, and then he gets his inheritance. But he doesn't want to go because of all this questionable stuff that has to go down in order for that to happen, including the fake engagement they'll have to have. And like her whole story, her whole cover story is that they will be eloping and all this stuff. My favorite parts, not really my favorite, but like really up there, is when you go back to Spindle Cove and like everyone else is trying to figure out what happened to the two of them, and it's just really funny. Though her mother, God, I hate her mother's character. She gets even worse in the third one. I hate her. Thank you, good night. Basically they end up going on this trip. The problem is that Payne can't sleep alone because nightmares, so she has to sleep in the same bed as him. He says nothing will happen, but spoiler, things happen. And happy ever after. It was great. 10 out of 10. Love it. 5 stars. After that, I listened to the audiobook of Long Way Down by Jason Reynolds. I think that's how you pronounce his last name. I had a really bad migraine and I was in bed. I didn't want to read anything physically with my eyes. I just wanted to close my eyes and listen to something. And it's a pretty short audiobook because it's another book written in verse. So I just plugged in my headphones and listened because it was available at my library. And I don't remember if he narrates it, but it was beautifully done. And it is a sad story. I do recommend it. I rated it 4 stars. It's gonna be hard to explain the premise since it's so short being written in verse. But basically the premise is the main character's brother is murdered. I think in like a shooting or something like that, I don't know. And he thinks he knows who's done it, so he's taken his brother's gun to his apartment building or something like that to shoot him. And when he enters the elevator, every floor as he's going down, the ghosts of family and friends who have similarly died enter and remind him that this is just a constant cycle of violence. And if he goes and shoots this guy without actually, like, even if he did know it was him, it will just be continuing the violence because then someone will come, like some family member of his will come shoot him as revenge in this whole constant cycle. And it's really sad. Rated it 4 stars, like I said that. I recommend. Well, it is 1 coffee / camera battery charging break later. And I am here to finish this once and for all. Starting off with the next book after a long way down, which is Desperate Measures by Katie Robert. In my defense, it was Valentine's Day. I feel like most people by this point know what Katie Roberts' Disney villain series is, thanks to TikTok. But basically it's a series where each book is based off of a Disney villain and a hero of the series or something like that ending up together romantically, intimately mostly. There are dark romances, and Desperate Measures is the first one between Jafar and Jasmine. The basic premise of this one is that Jasmine's father has basically sold her into marriage to Ali, I think it's pronounced Ali, and she's not happy about it, 1, because she doesn't like him, but 2, because he's not a good guy, and her father's, like, basically kind of like a crime boss of some kind, something like that. Jafar has been playing this coup for a while, but he learns about this because he really wants Jasmine for himself, so he ups the timeline, does the coup right now, right here, right then, and takes Jasmine as his prize. That's one way to word it. I liked it. I can see why people don't like it. It's very dark. You gotta go in with that mindset, knowing that's how it's going to be. And I think then you can enjoy it. I enjoyed it. I think I rated it 3.5 stars. The scene where she's wearing the white dress that's supposed to be her wedding dress, and she's covered in blood after stabbing a guy, is iconic. No one can tell me otherwise. Thank you very much. After that, I read the next book, The Secret Vlog, People Like Her by Ellery Boyd, which is a writing duo, husband-wife duo. I have opinions and thoughts. Spoiler, did not like it. The basic premise is let me check their names. Emmy is a Instamom, and her husband is an author, but since his first book, he hasn't, basically written anything. Every time he writes something, he just rewrites it all. She's a famous Instamom. That's how they make their living. They have 2 kids together. I hated every character. The premise is that they're being stalked by someone online, but also they find them in real life and follow them around and want revenge for something. We don't know what. Through most of the book. And then things happen. But everything that's supposed to be set up as what this villainous stalker is doing, most of that stuff is not the villainous stalker. Like, the breaking into their house, the stealing their property, they're posting photos of them online like they are them, and stealing their image and all this stuff, is all other people. Like, there are at least 3 people doing nefarious and illegal things against this family, and we're supposed to believe that's, like, normal and understandable, like, and also just the ending was not good. That's my thoughts on people like her. That's all I'm giving you. After that, I read Emergency Skin by N.K. Jemisin. It's like 30 to 50 pages long. There was this, while back, a collection that was published from, like, each story was by a different famous author. I think they're all supposed to be about humanity and science fiction-y stuff. I don't know. I know that one of the other authors was, like, Veronica Roth. I think that's her name, of the Divergent series. But I read N.K. Jemisin's. I've been looking into reading some of her other books. Like, the 5th season, I'm really interested into reading that one. But I've heard that it's really high fantasy, and you gotta, like, pay attention when you read it. So I wanted just a little taste test, and this one's like 35 pages. It's a quick little read. I highly recommend it. It's very good. I rated it 4 stars. It's gonna be interesting trying to describe the premise, because I can't describe it too much, being as it's so short. But basically, global warming happened, and there was a group of, basically, the elite, all the rich white men, got onto a spaceship, went to space, and are living their best lives. And they have these things called skins. Depending on what skin you have, shows your power in this hierarchy they've made. And the way they make the skins is this specific organic material that you can only get on Earth, so every so often they have to send someone down to go get it. And you're following the main character where the book starts, he's going down, like, at that moment. And they've implanted the founders into their brain, and they have to go get this thing, but not everything is the way that they've been told it's been by the founders. Everything's basically a lie, and it's very good. Recommend, because you can just read it in one sitting. It's very good. After that, I read Dirty Billionaire by Megan March for the 3rd time. I'm sorry. I continuously read it, and I don't know why. My library has the audiobook, and I've listened to it 3 times now. First time, in 2020, I read the whole entire series in, like, 1 month. I was not feeling well. I was a little sick. And I had some stomach bug thing, so I was just laying in bed with a migraine and a stomach bug, and I was reading it. And I listened to all of them in, like, 1 week. It was a good time. I originally rated the first one 4 stars, still 4 stars. Second one 4 stars, third one 3 stars. I have not reread the second or third one ever. But at some point last year, I remember just rereading the first one for no reason, and I did the same thing, in February, not this month, but February, and I still enjoy it. I think the reason why I like it so much is because of the audiobook, so if you want to read it, I say audiobook, but I rated it 4 stars. Basically, the premise is, I can still not remember any characters' names in any book, but the main female character is a country singer who kind of won, like, an American Idol type competition type thing. So she's growing in the business, but part of her contract is she has to fake date this guy who is known to sleep around, sometimes with men, and the industry does not like that. So she has to be his fake girlfriend to make him look good. But he's making her look bad and continuously does it anyways, all this stuff. They basically want her to be a babysitter. She's like, I'm a singer. And then it becomes this new thing where they want her to, they want them to do a publicity stunt of engagement on New Year's during a big show, whatnot. She does not want to do it, and then Christmas she gets herself the present of a man. Her words, not mine. she goes to a bar after a performance, decides to sleep with a guy who is the main male character, who is a rich tycoon of some kind. He has, like, loads and loads of money, and he's also, like, 12 years older than her. He has no clue who she is. She instantly knows who he is, but doesn't really care about that at the time. They have one night together, and then she leaves without telling him her name and whatnot. When he wakes up, he doesn't know who she is or anything, but he likes her, so he does a publicity stunt of his own, where he, basically goes to the powers who be and is like, hey, I have one passionate night with this woman, and I want to marry her, so if you show up to this, like, where we were that night, by New Year's Day, like midnight New Year's Day, I will marry you, I'll have prenup in hand, whatnot. And, so now she has 2 different publicity stunt engagements for the same day. And she, honestly, she's a billionaire, like, it's called Dirty Billionaire. And it's their relationship. It's not really a relationship. They don't start really liking each other emotionally until, like, book 2. I don't know why I keep on rereading it. We do not need to delve into why. After that, I read the ebook of The Ghost We Keep by Mason Deaver. I think that's how you pronounce their name. I read I Wish You All the Best when that came out, I think in 2020. Loved it, rated it 4 stars. I enjoyed this one as well. Do not go in. Goodreads has it down as a romance. It's not. There's the romance is like 10 miles away, okay? I rated it 4 stars as well. Basically the premise is, I think they go by Lee. Their brother was killed in a hit and run, and so it's like a jumping timeline type thing, but their brother was killed in a hit and run. I think they're the ones that find the body, and dealing with the emotions afterwards, how grief is affecting the whole family, how they can't go, like, their school is affecting with, like, schoolwork and also friendships. That scene where the friends were like, you're too sad for us. If I was in that situation, I would also be crying on the ground. But reading it, I was ready to fight people. I was ready to fight. The only person who really knows what they are going through is their brother's best friend, whose name I also can't remember now. And so they, like, the friend is, like, poetry type person. They like poetry. And the main character likes music. They write a lot of music. So they get together, talk about the dead brother, but also just are friends because they need someone to talk to. And they learn more about their brother. In the meantime, I cried. I cried. The moral of the story is I cried. I cried a lot at the end. I saved, like, the last 5 chapters till, like, one night at, like, 9 p.m. I sat in my chair, I read it in one sitting. I cried. If you read it, I recommend you read the About page or afterward or whatever by the author, because it talks about why the book was written and why it's not the book that they originally intended. And that made me cry more. Just all around a sad time. I was emotionally destroyed and I was okay with that. 4 stars. After that, okay, this is where we come to the point where I really can't pronounce names, and I am so sorry to her. But, My Sister, the Serial Killer by Oyinkan Braithwaite. That was I really butchered that. I'm so sorry. Butchered that like the main character's sister butchers men. That was a bad joke, I'm sorry. Premise is, I listened to the audiobook. The audiobook's really good. I listened to it in like one sitting. The premise is there's a main character, she's a nurse. I think she's the head nurse of this hospital in, like, the ICU, I think, in Nigeria. I think Nigeria. I don't think it officially said where, but the author's from Nigeria, so I'm gonna go to Nigeria. But hesitantly go with Nigeria. They have pretty big OCD and a crush on the main doctor that everyone has a crush on. But their beautiful younger sister is everyone's favorite person ever, and also keeps on killing men. She says that it's self-defense, and every time she has to go and clean up the body and help her clean up the mess and all this stuff, it just becomes this whole big problem and rift in between them. The book starts with her sister having killed someone, they're cleaning up the body. And so, like, her boyfriend's gone missing. Oh no! And she's just, like, also, like, trying to date people at the same time, ends up dating the doctor that she has a crush on, and it becomes this whole problem of, who do you choose, family, or, the good of people in general. Pretty good. Rated at 4 stars. Recommend audiobook. It's a pretty short book. It's like less than 300 pages. Now this time, the rest of the physical books, which are all books, or rest of the books that I read for that secret reading vlog that I mentioned so many times in this video, you're probably sick of it. First up is Queen of Blood by Sarah Beth Durst. If you are the type of person who finds magic systems really important in your fantasy books, I highly recommend this. This is a high fantasy YA, but like older YA, because it's very dark. There's a lot of deaths. The first chapter is a bunch of kids die. Basically, the premise is there are 6 types of spirits. There are earth, fire, air, water, but there's also wood and metal. Fire, ice, water, air, earth, or wood. Yeah, that's what it is. You can tell I annotated it. I had a fun time annotating this. Many notes, many theories. I had a great time reading this, actually. Besides the cover. So, basically, there's these 6 spirits. There's the queen who can control them, and every woman has the possibility when she's born to have the power to slightly be able to control them and whatnot. Not all of them are, but the main character, Delina. I was saying close at all. Delina. She ends up being able to control them in moments where it's very important. And ends up getting training at like one of the special schools where they train these girls. And then there's these champions who further their training in real world, which is what Ben is. He is a champion, disgraced champion, who is also the queen's ex. And then when the queen dies, all these girls get together. They have this like ritual type thing that goes down for the next queen to be chosen. But, it seems not all the spirits are being controlled, because they keep on murdering whole entire villages, as well as a bunch of these girls. Like, some of the most powerful of these girls are dying in the middle of the castle. Like, all this stuff is happening. It's very suspicious. Very interesting. Very intrigued on where the next book is going. Enjoyed it. One of the greatest magic systems I've read in a long, long time. I swear we're almost done. We're down to the last 3. I hopefully won't have to restart the camera again. Whoa. So after Queen of Blood, I read Rogue of One's Own by Evie Dunmore. And this is the sequel to Bringing Down the Duke. And very long. It's over 400 pages. First thought is that it could definitely be 50 pages shorter, especially in the beginning. This one follows Lucy, who is the head of the Blue Stocking group that is trying to amend the Women's Marriage Act that makes it so when a woman gets married, all her property goes to a man, but not like a woman never has her own property. She's trying to amend this, and then there's her brother's childhood best friend, Tristan, who is a rake. He is a war hero and a poet, and by the beginning of this book, they are both equal owners of a publishing company. She wanted to use a publishing company to publish stuff about their cause, whatnot. They like raised a whole bunch of money to buy half of it, so they would have the most of the stock of it. But he already owned like 25%. And he bought the other 25%, so now they have equal parts. And it's this whole big problem, because neither one of them can do anything without the other one agreeing to it, which means he won't let her do this, because that would ruin the sales for his poetry book. Then there's this thing. It's very obvious Tristan has a thing for her. Especially from, like, when he first meets her, when they're kids. It is very obvious that he has a thing for her, and she hates him. It is a slow burn enemies to lovers, where he secretly is pining for her, except the slow burn is way too slow. Did the ball scene to happen? No. That's the 50 pages that could have been cut out. Basically, she comes to him really angry about it, and he makes the deal that if she sleeps with him, he will give her 1%, so that she'll be the head owner of the publishing company, whatnot. And obviously, eventually, she agrees. And from that point on, it really picked up. Really enjoyed it. I think, if you liked Breaking Down the Duke, you'll like this, but also if you thought it was okay but you want something more and you like Tessa Dare's writing style, I think you'll like this. Enjoyed it. That's that. And then the last physical book and last book about this vlog in this video, but not the last book in this video, is Safe Haven by Nicholas Sparks. Yeah, Sparks. I read this both physically and as an audiobook at the same time. I read the first 100 pages or so just on my own, just reading it with my eyeballs. But then I wanted to experience the audiobook as well, and it was available. So I just listened while I read along, and I recommend you do the audiobook if you want to read this. The audiobook narrator, spectacular. Love her. 10 out of 10. This book is about Katie, who is a waitress at a diner in a small town called Southport in the South, and she's running from her dark past, whose name is Kevin. Kevin, we do not need to talk about Kevin in this video, but I want a whole book about Kevin. Thank you, Nicholas Sparks. I would really appreciate it. He's never gonna watch this video. And then her love interest is Alex, who's a single dad of 2 kids ever since his wife died, and he owns/runs the general store in town. And they have a little romance, but also there's the thriller aspect that is Kevin. Kevin, not a great character. I'm not even 100% sure if his name's Kevin. I just think it's Kevin. I'm gonna go with it's Kevin. Kevin is crazy, and I don't love him, of course, because he's crazy, but well, not because he's crazy, but the things that he does, not a good person. But the way that his brain works is very interesting to me, and I want just a whole book about that. Thank you very much. Interesting, I guess. It's not like a bad book, per se, and if you just want a quick contemporary romance to read, listen to the audiobook. And then the last book of the video is, it's here, the third book in the Spindle Cove series by Tessa Dare, A Lady by Midnight. I think I already said that I rated it 4 stars. Not my favorite of this series. That being said, I liked it. My main problem was that it wasn't really a romance most of the time. There was, a good bit that was romance, but most of it, for the most part, was just a mystery. This one follows, I think her name's Susanna from the first one's best friend, Kate Taylor. She is the piano teacher. She's the music teacher of Spindle Cove. She is an orphan, or she thinks she's an orphan. She's went to this school for foundlings. She never knew who her parents were. She doesn't have any memories from back then, whatnot. A big part of her character is that she's trying to figure out who her family is. And then there's Corporal Thorne. Susanna, is that even her name? Her husband's best friend. And second command, Corporal Thorne. It is very obvious that he's secretly pining for Kate, but he also knows about her past, and he's trying to hide it from her. It's very obvious from the first time you read from his point of view that he knows things about her, but also he's into her. She kind of hates him, just because he's always mean to her. And that's why he's trying to stay away from her, one, so that he doesn't, ruin her as a lady, but also because he doesn't want her to learn about her past, because he thinks it's too depressing for her, or whatnot. The book starts off with her in town doing some stuff, and she misses the carriage back to Spindle Cove. He's there with a horse, a gate, and a dog. A very adorable dog. Offers her a ride home. They stop for dinner at one point and kiss in a field. And then by the time they get back to Spindle Cove, there's a Marquez? Or, who knows. Some very rich, powerful people are there looking for her. They went around town showing a naked picture of a lady that looks exactly like her, who they think is her mother, that they found in the attic. And they're trying to, try to figure out if she's their family, if she's long lost member of this family. Their cousin, I think, is what it is. If so, both her family members or both her parents are presumed dead. And so Thor knows where she actually comes from, and he does not trust these people, and he wants to protect her. The only way that he can go along protecting her is if they pretend to be engaged. So it's a fake dating. Again. It's okay. The pining is there. Very much on his side. Not really romantically. He doesn't accept the romantic part until way later on. But physically, he's pining for her. And then she ends up noticing all this stuff that he does for her and all this. And then she starts pining for him, both romantically and physically. And so they're, making out and stuff. And then he ends up saying something after a snake bite. And the venom's coursing through his body about her past. And so after she nurses him back to health, she forces him to tell her the truth. And all that stuff, and it's her figuring out what to do with all this stuff going on, and it's like maybe 25% romance. That being said, Tessa's writing is top tier. Love it, so still 4 stars. And all I can say about it is, how many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop? Answer, 2. That is it. Don't you lick it if you read the end of this book. Instead of a Tootsie Pop, though, with Corporal Thorn. And she really just licked his throat. That's it. That's all that happened. I thought that joke was funny. No one else will. And that is the end of the video. Yes, I read 27 books. 16 of them in the shortest month of the year. Do we need to have a conversation about that? No. What we need to have a conversation about is how long this video is going to be. So, basically, the moral of the story is subscribe if you want, like if you want, but also look out for the secret vlog that I've mentioned about a dozen times, because that will probably be a lot more interesting than this, but also a lot longer. See you then.